Let us pray for all those who don't believe in God, or those who doubt about the existence of God or about His mercy. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, seat of wisdom, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So this morning, we begin to study two attributes of God. The first attribute we will speak about, the unity, and the second, the simplicity. In fact, both are very united. So, if you go to your text, in fact, when we speak about God, we can say we speak about what we don't know about God. You remember the prayer of Saint Gregory of Nazianzen? You see, what I know about you, God, he says, I know nothing. In fact, directly, we don't know God directly. So our knowledge of God is imperfect, and we know that what we know is little in comparison of what we don't know. If you study biology, and you study where the principal organ is something important to know. There is a liver, there is a stomach, and there is a heart and lungs, but you don't know exactly the function of every one. So you know that you don't know. And the more we study, the more we discover we don't know. I think it's the same when we study the attribute of God. The more we discover His attribute, the more we discover that we don't have a perfect, a good knowledge of Him. Is the reason why we never stop to reflect on God. Never stop. Theology is never finished. Theologian will have a job for all the time. People will be on earth. Okay? When we know God in this life, we do not know Him in His essence, but, as St. Thomas says, from creature as their principle. We know God as the principle of the creature we see. And we see the order. It is exactly the summary of the 5 proofs of St. Thomas. Okay? And by way of excellence and remote. We see God is, for example, man is intelligent. We say God is intelligent, but infinitely. We saw that last class. Infinitely, without any limit. He cannot have any limit because he is pure act. Pure act, pure existence. That means there is nothing limiting Him. His reality is to exist by Himself in total perfection. But that is difficult for us. We cannot understand that. But we can say something. We can say He's infinitely perfect. But it's not exactly. That is above our capacity. Is excellent. And we take from God the imperfection there are in our own way of living. For example, I am intelligent. But I am not intelligent as God. God knows everything in one instant. Eternal knowledge. But I know step by step. So I reason. So I can see God is intelligent, but not in the same way as I am. I am intelligent through reasoning. I am reasonable. God does not reason. So that is way of remotion. We remote, we take off from God the imperfection. That is the way we know that. Okay? So I go to just in the middle. And as we come to consider in God His unity, that means God is not divided, God is one, and His simplicity, not composition, His immutability, no change. In fact, what we are studying now, we are studying, we can say, negative attribute. He is not multiply, He is one. He is not multiple. He is not composed, He is simple. He is not changing. We are multiple, we are composed, we are changing. So when we speak about God, we think that God is not what we are. It's not what we are. I continue. Rather, our God is not affected by composition and change. Then now, and how he exists in himself. In fact, it is the way we know God, it is an imperfect way. We know God by denying in God the imperfection we see in our own perfection. Our perfection are not perfect. Our qualities are not absolutely perfect. They are in potency. They are able to be improved. But in God there is no change. So it must be absolutely perfect, absolutely freed from any composition of act and potency, etc. Okay? So no composition. If I say no composition, what is that? Simplicity. No division, unity. So God is one, God is simple. Okay, we have to reflect on that during this class. I continue. And therefore, the paragraph in the rectangle is important. God is pure, infinitely simple. In him there is no possibility of change and progress. So in God there is no composition of potency and act, of essence and existence. God is eternally and simultaneously, in one instant, and eternally, who is he? Well, that is a synthesis of the two, that the whole chapter is here. Now we have to develop that. Okay, what it is written in that paragraph, it is, in fact, the object of our explanation this morning, the reflection. So I continue. And therefore, we call this attribute God negative attribute. And negative. For example, if I say immensity, immutability, mean negative. In can be negative. Immutability, no change. Immensity, no measure. Infinity, no limit, I express a reality through negation. Is it a good definition? No. We saw that, that we define by, it's not good to define by negation. For example, can I say a dog? What is a dog? A dog is not a cat, it's not a car, it's not a horse, it's not a fly. It's true, God is not that, but it's not the definition of a dog, no? But in the spiritual realities, we are obliged to use negation. We have to use negation because we have no direct knowledge. So we say, God is my Father, our Father who art in heaven, but not in the same way as my Father. So I have to deny from God the limits, the imperfection of my Father. We understand that. So our way of God is first a negative way. If you have time, read attentively the prayer of Saint Gregory of Nazianzen, and you will see that the majority of what he says, in fact, it is we don't know exactly who you are. We know we are infinite, but what is to be infinite? That is above our concept. We have the concept of infinity, but we cannot see the content of that. We have the concept of immensity. But what is exactly immensity? We can say it is not something we can measure. But, So we have an indirect knowledge of God through a negation of the limitation we see in creature. Creatures are measurable. God is not measurable. Creatures are finite. God is not finite. So he is infinite. But it is a negative concept. Okay? I continue. So is exemption from composition and change. In fact, we know more that what God is not than what he is. Because what he is escapes our knowledge, direct knowledge. So we have only a part of the knowledge of God, a part. We know the essential, he exists. And we know that if we have perfection in creature, those perfections must exist in God as the source of the perfection, the model of those perfections. And those perfections participate in the perfection of God. But directly, we don't have the knowledge of the infinite goodness of God, or the infinite power of God. Okay, that is the meaning. That means when we study theology, we must be aware of our limits. We cannot have a perfect knowledge of God. But even if we don't have a perfect knowledge of God, it's better to know what we know than to know nothing. No? Even if I don't know a perfect knowledge of biology, but it's better to know what I know than to know nothing. You know? That means when I know something, it's science, but it's an imperfect science. So we have an imperfect knowledge of God. We are condemned to that. Even in heaven, we will never have a perfect knowledge of God. Why? Because to have a perfect knowledge of God, that means we are God. Who has a perfect knowledge of himself? Only God. So even for all eternity, we never arrive to a perfect knowledge of God. Impossible. Because we are in potency. And God is pure act. Okay. Now the meaning of attribute. An attribute, it is a kind of quality, a perfection, a characteristic, and we give to a subject. It is an attribute. It is a predicate. But when we speak about God, we don't speak about the predicates, we speak about the attribute. And St. Thomas speak about the names of God, the names of God. We say God, God is love. God is creator. God is infinitely merciful, etc. All those are the attributes of God. And St. Thomas says all that are the names of God. The one reality can have many names, no? I can give many names to a thing. For example, Jesus Christ. Well, he is the son of Mary. He is the son of God. He is the son of Joseph. He is a carpenter. He is a prophet. He is the Messiah. He is, you know, but it's the same reality. So it is what we are doing. When we study the attribute of God, in fact, we find names that we attribute to God. But we must be attentive that all those names are attributed to only one reality, and they are one with the subject. They are one with the subject. And not only they are one with the subject, they are one with one another. And the justice of God and the mercy of God are one in God. Otherwise, if you accept a distinction, there is composition in God. God is no more God. Interesting. For example, I told that to you maybe in class, Saint Teresa of Lisieux once. She was asked if there is hell. I did that here. She was asked, do you believe the existence of hell? I say, oh yes, I believe. But I hope there is nobody there. And he continued the question. He said, do you believe in the mercy of God? She said, yes, I believe in the mercy of God because I believe in his justice. So Saint Teresa believed in the mercy of God because she believed in the justice. Because in God the justice and the mercy are one. No. We distinct that because we know things separately. We know things from the effects. But all that a cause can have many effects. But there is only one cause. Electricity has many effects. Electricity produces heat, electricity produces light, electricity produces motion, but it is the same electricity. Okay? We will come back on that. So I go to the next page, page 2. But in a more restricted sense, narrow sense, a perfection that is conceived as flowing from the essence. So the perfection here, we speak about the attribute of God. They are flowing from the essence of God. Here I will take an analogy with what we study in logic. If I say, for example, man is a rational animal, okay? That is the essence of man, the essence of man. And from that essence, I can deduce he is able to think, he is able to take a decision, he is able to eat, he is able to sleep, etc. So from the essence, I see the attribute. In fact, can we directly know the attribute of God directly from the essence? In fact, we know the attributes of God from our experience. How can we know the attributes of God? Through the 5 proofs, or the 7 proofs if we count the moral proof. It is from that that we know the extent of God, the attributes of God, the power of God, for example, the intelligence of God. Okay? But anyway, those attributes come from the essence of God. And what we do now what do we know now, presently, after what we studied before? If we know that God is pure act, and that God is assay. And when we reflect about that pure act and assay, we can discover a lot of attributes. Okay, I go to the text. Simplicity, eternity, and so forth are taught as attribute of God because we conceive them not as constituting the essence, but resulting from the essence. We cannot go direct. We cannot analyze God directly. We cannot do that. But we can know God through His effect, through the facts. To the facts. The facts we see are the effect of God. The beauty in the world, the order, the intelligence we see in the universe, etc. From that, we can arrive to know the essence of God. Who is God? This way of conceiving is purely analogical. Purely analogical. We are forming concept of His essence and attributes as we form separate concept of essence in created things. In fact, we must be aware, even when we speak about God, we reflect about God, we continue to use our human intellect. In our human intellect, as we saw in logic, has 3 operations: to understand, simple apprehension, to judge, and to reason. That is a way of knowing. And so when we speak about God, we have to use that. We have to use that. So because of that, our knowledge is purely analogical. We don't have a direct experience of God. What is different? In created thing, essence and attribute are only distinct concepts, but also distinct realities. But if I say, for example, man is a rational animal, the reality of rationality in man is different, really different from his animality. But if I say God is just and God is merciful, the distinction between justice in God and mercy of God is not a real distinction. It's a distinction of reason, but based on some reality, some effect. So it is a distinction of reason, very important. No? It is a distinction of reason, reasoned. That means we don't create that distinction. We discover the distinction, not in God Himself, not in the essence of God, we cannot, but from the effects. Like I can know that Mozart is a great musician when I listen to his music, you know. From this effect. We cannot know that directly. But the distinction in God between mercy and justice is not a real distinction. The distinction between rationality and animality is a real distinction. But in God, it's not a real distinction. It's a distinction of reason. But it's not a distinction reasoning. It is reason that means with foundation in reality, with foundation. Con fundamento in re. It is on your text. With with fundamento, with a foundation in the reality. And that reality, what is that? The effects. From the effects, I can say, if there is perfection in the effect, there must be perfection in the cause, in the source, in the mother. And I can say, those perfections, they are here. The effects are different, but in God they are only one. Why I am obliged to say that? Because God is pure. God exists only by Himself. You understand then? You know, that is fundamental. And what we study now is fundamental for your class in theology in the future. Huh? It is a capital. You capitalize today. You are capitalist. Huh? I continue number 1 to 4. Huh? In God's simplicity forbids us to think a composition of essence and attribute. But we can distinguish by reason that. But we must be aware it's not a real distinction. So we distinguish, for example, I can distinguish in Mozart, religious music, opera, and piano concerto. But I say that is one in Mozart, you know. They are not three authors because he has three kinds of music. Okay? I am not three teachers because I teach philosophy of God, I teach socialistic and compendium. No, there is only one teacher with three effects. Understand that? Huh? So from the effects we arrive. Huh? But the difference, my teaching is not my essence. In God, is perfection or his essence. They are one with his essence. In fact, his essence is to exist, to pure act. He exists by himself. Huh? Exists by himself. Okay? I continue. In reality, the attribute of God may be identified with his essence. Huh? One, the mercy of God, the power of God, the omnipotence of God are one with his existence, are one with his existence as it. Huh? We cannot separate that. If you separate that, we get multiplicity, and God is no more one. Okay. And identify with other attributes. Not only the attributes of God are one with his essence, but they are one with one another. So the distinction between justice of God and the mercy of God is a distinction of reason because I see the effect of God, forgiving. I see the effect of God, judging, rewarding, etc. But I am aware that in God, the justice of God, the mercy of God, even if I can distinguish them, they are one. So it's a distinction of reason, but reason founded on the effect, on the effects. Okay, I can see. Okay, I go now to number 1, 2, 6. The paragraph at the end is important, but I don't have time to explain everything. Anyway, I already said what is there. Huh? Number 1 here, there's some correction. I don't know if I will read the text. None of our concepts is that. None of our concepts. Number 1, 2, 6. Huh? 1, 2, 6. None of our concepts is capable of expressing the infinite reality of God. Oh, I spoke about that. I go to page 3. Well, in fact, here we have two kind of philosophers who oppose that. The older realist, the Middle Age, they say there is a real distinction between the attribute of God. If you say there is a real distinction, what do? You put in God a division, multiplicity. Secondly, nominalist, and the nominalist. The distinction is for them merely mental. That means there is no foundation in the reality. For nominalist, the distinction is not a distinction of reasoned, but a distinction of reasoning. You understand, huh? Reasoning. That means come from only my mind. It is my mind who put a distinction between justice and mercy. You know, it's not. So that's it. But for St. Thomas, for scholastic philosopher, the distinction is not reasoning. It's not the pure fruit of my mind. It is founded on something that is objective, outside of my mind. For example, I can see the order in the world. I can see the wisdom in people, the goodness of the mothers. I can see the strength of the horse of ox. So all those perfections I can see, they are not the same. They are different They are different, but I know that the distinction, it is different in the effects, but it's not different in the cause. There is one cause having many effects. Think always about the electricity. It's a good example. Electricity is one, but can have many effects. Of course, any comparison is imperfect, because electricity does not exist by itself. It must be produced. But by analogy, we can say that, and we know, how can we know the presence of electricity in a wire? You take a wire, you look at that. Oh, beautiful wire. I'm sure you are charged. Oh, I'm not sure. What do you do?
Touch it.
Like you touch it. You use an instrument to verify if there is electricity. A voltmeter, you use a voltmeter, or you put a lamp, or you... Because how we can know the presence of electricity? Through its effects. Through the multiple effects, we conclude. And when there is an ice storm, what happens in your house? No more electricity. So we know electricity is not present because there is no effect. So you know the presence of the electricity through its effect. The same for God. We know the existence of God and the attributes of God from his effects. You understand?
Yes.
You know, it's important to have some analogy because you are destined to become teacher, or preacher, or discuss with people. It's important. Analogy is very important to understand. I have to understand. And that example, electricity, for me, is a very good example. But don't forget, it's not perfect. And why? Because electricity must be produced by a generator. But God has no generator. He is the generator. He is the one who produced everything from nothing. Okay. But the fact that we know the presence of electricity through its effect, is the same for God. We know the presence of God in his existence. We know his attributes, his perfection through the effects of his power, of his love, etc. But those names are not purely synonymous. I cannot say the justice of God is exactly the same as the mercy of God. Because in the reality, in the effect, they are not the same. But I must say, in God, they are the same. For example, microwaves in your kitchen is moved by electricity, and the lamps here are moved by electricity. Can I say that the microwaves and the lamp are the same? No, but they are moved, they are functioned by the same source of energy. Okay. I go to the bottom of page 3. God's infinite perfection contains all the perfection that it embraces, and any and all attributes we conceive of it. In fact, it is a synthesis of what I told you just before. All the attributes of God are one in God. They are content, not the content. God is his attribute. That is different. When I say John is a good golfer, John is not, the good golfer is not the essence of John. But when I say God is merciful, God is love, God is powerful, God is intelligent, they are one with him. They are one with him. If you say they are not one, God is composed. The intelligence of God is one with his essence. The will of God, the love of God is one with his essence. That means to exist in God is to love. And to love in God is to exist. His existence is love. You know what St. John said? That is very, very, at a philosophical point of view, is very deep. I don't speak about theology here. When St. John he says, God is love. That is exactly what I'm telling you now. The essence of God is love, to love. The essence of God is to know. The essence of God is to be powerful. Everything is one. It's difficult for us because we think separately. But we must be aware that in God everything is one with his essence. with this pure existence assay. Pure existence assay. Ipsum and St. Thomas are a formula to synthesize that. I will write that here. Ipsum esse subsistens. Did we saw that? Ipsum esse subsistens. Ipsum, himself. Himself. Esse, to exist. And not only he exists subsisting. That means it is the difference between to a substance and a subsistence. You remember that? The substance does not imply necessarily existence. For example, my substance I and your substance I. Does that substance imply existence? No. But when your substance receives existence, it becomes subsistent. Subsistence is when the essence, the substance, it receives existence. Subsist. But God subsists, that means continue to exist by himself. Himself. As ipsum is the same thing as esse. And all that is the same thing as pure act, you know. So that formula of St. Thomas, if you see that, is that different from to be esse, to exist, to be esse, is the same thing here, okay? Because some book they will speak about ipsum esse subsistence. Okay, now let us go to the next page, page 4, the unity and simplicity of God. First, the unity. So what is the meaning? That means not to be divided. Okay? So unity is a transcendental notion. Let us go back again to ontology, to metaphysics. In fact, you realize more and more, I think, that you cannot study philosophy of God if you don't know the metaphysics. Because metaphysics is a new language. Okay? So, every being, any being is one, is true, is good. That means every being can be known by, must be known. If he exists, he must be known by an intelligent. Or if you want, he is intelligible. Intelligible. At least known by the one who creates him or it. If something exists because someone thought. For example, that plate and that towel exists because someone thought about that. Okay? So that means the existence of being is necessarily linked with an intelligence. The intelligence of the maker or the intelligence of the world, or those who will know that thing, you know. Why we can know that? Because it is a being. Every being can be known. Because it can be known, it is true. Okay? He is a true being. It's not a plastic diamond. It's a real diamond. Okay? Secondly, every being, by the fact it exists, it is a good thing. Because the best quality, the first good for everything is to exist. If I exist, that means someone, the one who created me, who made me, who produced me, he thought it was a good thing. When the man who did that, for him it was a good thing to do a desk. And to make a desk is a good. Sometimes even in economy we call that good. Goods, many goods. It's a good thing. And it can be desired. And also every being is necessarily unique one. A being cannot be cloned. No being can be cloned. A being is one, necessarily one. If he is not one, he are many beings. You know. So the unity of God is in his being as any unity is in a being. Of course, in finite being, the being is composed with matter and form for material things. is composed with act and potency for spiritual reality. For example, your soul, even after your death, or angels. In fact, I speak about that because I have faith, not as a philosopher. They are in potency. They are not pure act. Okay, only God is pure act. Okay, I come back to the text here. So, and therefore must be true of God. What is true of creation, what is true of every being, is true of the being by himself. So God is one, unity of God. God is one, all. What is the meaning of one? Is to be whole, to be complete, to be perfect, to be integral of all the parts, etc. So that is the meaning of all. I told you that is the origin of holy in English. All, holy, complete, perfect. But at the same time, when a thing is all, complete, perfect, perfect for us is relative because we are in potency. And for God, perfection is absolute. At the same time, it is different, is adequate, is other, is different, is transcendent, is apart. Apart. In Latin, is sanctus. Separated, consecrated. And you have the two. And interesting. When we speak about the unity of God, we have to speak about that. Why? Because what we see in the attribute of any being must be seen, of course, in the perfect being. You know? So God is necessarily one and unique. Well, for many reasons. One reason is here, metaphysics. Every being is unique. Even if you have 1 million of plastic cup, coffee made by a machine, everyone is different from the other. We saw that, because of quantified matter, different. Not two things are identical. Not two electrons are identical. Because being, by essence, is one and unique. You say, oh, we are twin. You are twin, but we are different. A mother, you give you two names. Castor et Pollux, in Latin. Castor et Pollux. Two twin. Okay. So I continue here. But undividedness, as opposed to real division into parts, that means opposed to physical division, matter and form, for example, or logical division, absence of metaphysical composition, act and potency. So we have physical division, and those physical divisions are matter and form. That is the theory of isomorphism. Every material thing is made with matter and determined, and the form determining the matter. We saw that. But that is physical division. Metaphysical division is act and potency, essence and existence, substance and accident, etc. That is the metaphysical division. So in God there is no physical division. Of course, He is not material. In God there is no metaphysical division. In God there is no mixture for potency to essence and existence. In God is pure act. God is pure existence. And in God, His nature is not different from His operation. In God, everything is one. We see that next class when we study the operative attribute of God. For the moment, we study the entitative. That means what constitutes fundamentally, what makes God totally apart from the rest. We saw that. It is aseity. Pure act, ase. Pure act existing by himself. Okay? I continue. Just human nature is one in the sense of being a logical whole. In fact, when we define human nature, we say man is a rational animal. We use many concepts for one reality, but it is real that the animality in man is different from his intellectuality, rationality. But in God, there is no composition at all. And if we see apparently composition in God, it's not because God is composed, because his effects are different. Okay, don't forget that. Huh? Now I go to 2.1.4. God is his own nature. Not only we have a nature, I have the human nature. I received the human nature. Huh? I received that. When I existed, I received the human nature. God has not a divine nature. He has not. He is. He is. You know what is nature? You remember that? It is the essence as principle of activity. You remember that? You know, some definitions are very, very important. And the definition of nature is very important. Huh? Nature is the essence of a thing as principle of activity. So for us, my intellect is different from my thought. I have the power to think, to have concept. But in God, everything is one in his essence. To exist for him is to know, is to love, is to be creator. You know? Even if he is totally free to be creator, he wants to be creator freely. He depends on nothing, but it is a free act of love. We see that in the future. Okay? So in God, in God, his nature and his existence are one. His nature, essence as principle of activity, is absolute existence. In fact, for God, if I have to say what is the nature of God, is to exist, to be by himself. Period. What is the nature of man? Is to be a rational animal. But that is composition. In God there is no composition. In man, John is an American. John is a Catholic. John is a rational. John is an animal, etc. All those attributes are in John, but John is not that. I cannot say John is human nature. I cannot say Socrates is the human nature. He shares in the human nature. God does not share in, he is. He will allow us to share with his goodness, but he cannot share his divinity. He cannot share his essence. He can share his attribute, but his essence to exist pure and assez, he cannot share that. It is really the foundation of his essence, to exist by himself. Ipsum esse subsistence. Okay? So God is one and unique. Huh? He is incapable of multiplication. Can God create a new God? No. So, you know, if you say God is not omnipotent, God is not in God. You know the objection? If you say God cannot create another God, therefore God is not omnipotent, he cannot do everything. What will answer to that?
Omnipotence is only what is logically possible.
Exactly. You are a good teacher. Huh? Yes. You know, we cannot ask God to make stupidity. To deny the principle of contradiction, for example. So, to make an error. So God cannot create. Because, let us suppose that God create a new God. That new God, is he a real new God?
No.
No, he's not a God because he's not as, he is ab alio by another. So you see, the essence of God is, the center is to exist as. Because of that, God is unique. Not only God is one, but God is unique. Okay? So next page, page 5. Now some people, they oppose that, they have the polytheism. I will not insist too much on that, but we can ask why they are polytheism. Because first, you know, they know God through appearances. So when you did not study philosophy, you see the thunder, you see the earthquake, you see volcanoes, and you see tsunami, and you see there is something much powerful than myself. So what do? You offer sacrifice to the ocean, the power of ocean, the god of ocean. You offer sacrifice to the god of lightning, Zeus, you know. You see, I keep your, your spear for you. Huh? So have pity on us, so we sacrifice people, you know. That means that they judge after the appearances. Huh? And also, you know, when we speak about God, we use analogy. If we are not attentive, what we will do? We will make our way of living, and we make God as the image of us, not us as the image of God. So the pagan, for example, the Roman, the Greek, and they have a god for sex, Venus. Huh? They have a god for wine and drunken, Bacchus, huh? Or Dionysus in the Greek. And they have a god for vengeance, for the war, Mars, you know. So that, in fact, they make God like themselves. In fact, that is not far from what said Freud and Nietzsche and Marx. They made the God of their image. And we see among the gods the same problem we have among men. You know, Jupiter is the super god among all the gods. But the poor guy, imagine, he's not totally independent because he depends on his wife. You know, he is the first god, but he depends on his wife. Hey, la la, huh? That means they made the god of their image. Passion or divinized, you know? But that is human, no? That means they did not use correctly the syllogism, the minor, the major, and the conclusion. But do not forget, we are enlightened by revelation, by Greco-Roman and Judeo-Christianism civilization. That we are. Even I bet that how many people they don't accept God even today. You know, okay. Another current, it is the Manichaeism. Huh? Manis was a priest. He would live from 216 to 76. And in fact, his theory is not something new. We find that in the Chinese philosophy. We find the same thing with our Indian in America, in Canada. The good Manitou, the bad Manitou. Huh? The god of the yin and yang, and the god of good, the god of evil, you know. So that means man has no responsibility. Huh? If he does good thing, it is the god of good. If he does bad thing, he is not responsible, the god of evil, you know. And St. Augustine was a member of that sect, you know that, huh? When St. Augustine converted, he was in the sect of the Manichaeists. So, excuse me, I go to page 6. First, the problem, I don't want to insist too much here about evil. We will study that, we have a chapter on that. In fact, evil, strictly speaking, does not exist. What is evil? It's the absence of being. Absence of being? So evil exists only in being. In fact, evil is absence of perfection in the being that should have that perfection. It can be a physical evil, it can be a moral evil. I don't want to, because we studied that for 1 or 2 hours on that subject. Huh? Okay, so we cannot accept that there is a God of evil. It is contradictory. A God of nothing, a God of absence. How I can have a relation with a God of absence? How a God of absence can have a power? Okay. Consequently, on the being that was supposed to be the supreme evil will have the same share in goodness and cannot be independent of the principle of good. So we cannot accept good. Anyway, if you see two gods, that one limits the other, no? One limits the other. One, if you have two leaders, that is problem. Can you put two corks on the same bottle? You put one or another. You cannot enter two in the same bottle at the same time. Of course, that's an analogy. Huh? That means, in fact, if you consider God as the first cause of everything, We cannot accept another cause, which is the cause of absence of thing. In fact, a God of absence of perfection is not a God. It's an absence of God. Okay? But I don't insist on that. St. Augustine was a member of that. He discovered that we cannot be, otherwise what is the consequence of that is the negation, not only of real God, is the negation of responsibility. In that conception, you are not responsible. You can kill. You can do anything. It's not my fault. It is the God who made me that, you know. So I wash my hand like Pontius Pilate. It's the negation of human freedom. It was very strong among the pagan, because we call it the fatum of faith. The fatum or the elenke. Even Jupiter, Zeus, was submitted to the fatum, and the fatum for him was the will of his wife. Okay, I go to number 2.4. So the unity of God suggested by the unity of the universe. You remember the proof? There is order, there must be a desire, a principle of order, one intelligence. If there is unity in multiplicity, you must have necessarily an intelligent organizer. When you go to New York on Thanksgiving Day, and you see a band coming from Iowa or from, I don't know, but every state try to be there, with 200 boy and girl in the same uniform, walking at the same pace, you say, oh, that is fruit of change. No, nobody will see that. You see, they are a good coach, a good organizer, a good orchestra as a good leader, you know. That is common sense. So it's the same here. We speak about the unity of God because we find in the multiplicity a unity. Unity of mind, unity of the one who organized that. If there is unity of plan, organization, there must be a unity of thinking, one who think about that, you know. So order and hierarchy manifest unity in the multiplicity. The effect is multiple, but the cause is one. It's not, we cannot say because the effect is multiple, the cause are multiple. No. We can have electricity, come back. We can have many effects, but only one cause. One cause. Okay? And in the case of order, of hierarchy, of beauty, of harmony, we must have an intelligent mind. One mind. In orchestra, there is no two conductors. Only one. Otherwise, they can go not at the same pace, you know. In the church, we have that, two popes. What happened when we have two popes? Schism. We cannot obey two popes. Okay? Page 7. So here I will not read the text, it is only what St. Thomas say. He confirmed what I told you. He's a bishop, he confirms. Okay, there is no order without a principle of order. And the principle of order must be one. There must be only one infinite cause. One infinite perfection. The unity in God. Okay? So you can read that. And I go to the bottom of page 7. Therefore, a conclusion. Therefore, unity of universe can be. Now that is those you oppose. Those who say, you know, if the question is not imaginary history. If there is many universe, Father, is there many gods? Even if there are many universes, suppose we discover life in another galaxy, it's not a problem. That galaxy, can that galaxy have life by itself? No. In fact, the same question. there is no problem. Even if there are multiplicity of humanities, if you want, for me there is no problem because they cannot exist by themselves. So the problem is only an apparent of problem. Because multiplicity in our universe, or multiplicity in many universes, many universes don't make one being assez. All that is contingent, therefore depend on one, only one. So if a day we meet some men, some women from another planet, but they are made by God, no? Created by God. And only one God. There is not the God of that planet and the God of my planet. No? That is an argument I heard recently, and they say, oh, if we discover humanity, well, I don't answer at the theological point of view of redemption. That is not my capacity, and not allowed to speak about that as a philosopher. But I can say, if I find extraterrestrial people, huh, if they exist, they don't exist by themselves. They exist by the one who is the cause of everything. It can be only one. We cannot have a God for the universe, the galaxy around the sun, and the galaxy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 1,000 of galaxies, 1,000 of God. Now only one God, one cause of existence. Why? Because there is only one possibility of existing by himself. And that is really the foundation of unity of God, and is also on the foundation of his simplicity, the simplicity of God. So if you go to page 8, in fact, God is unique. He cannot communicate his being, he cannot communicate his being assez, but he can share his being with being ab alio, by another. So we share in the being of God, we share in the existence of God, but we share by another. We don't exist by ourselves. Here is central, the essential difference between God and his creation is here. And that is the proof of contingencies. The reason why I told you many times, for me the strongest proof is the contingency. I would not say that to my grandmother. But as a philosopher, for me, it's the strongest. I don't exist by myself. I must exist by another, and that other must exist by himself. If he exists by himself, there is possibility only one, absolutely one God, a unique God. And that God must be without limit of perfection. Why? Because it's pure act. If I am pure act, I have no limitation of perfection. He must possess all the perfection in the effects, and those perfections must be without limit, and those perfections are one with his essence. Well, that is a part of, it is, we can say that, but we don't understand everything, no? Because if you understand everything, you are God. You are God. Okay? So you can read that by yourself. I go now to page 9. The simplicity of God. In fact, the simplicity of God is linked with the unity of God. The unity of God. So the capacity of division in the being makes the being imperfect. Capacity of division. Something what is to be able to be divided is to be in potency. Only being in potency can be divided. The being that is pure act cannot be divided. Cannot be divided in potency and act. It's pure act. Okay? So that if he is pure act, he has no composition, but is the consequence of that is simple. But the problem is, in our way of thinking, in our experience, the more a thing is simple, the more it is low in creation, no? A worm is simpler than a cat, and a cat is simpler than a man. So the worm is, because he is simple, is lower than the cat in the hierarchy of creation. For example, when we begin to have a calculator, the first, the inventor of the first calculator was Pascal, Blaise Pascal. Huh? He produced a machine in the 17th century to calculate. Bon, that is machine. After that, in 1950-60, we began to sell calculator, you know. And after that, we began to sell computer, you know. And after that, iPad, etc. So, you know, what happened? It is more and more and more complex. No? More and more complex. And the more complex it is, the more perfect it is. No? So, when you speak about God, we speak God is simple. Hey, wait a minute. Huh? He's not perfect, he is simple. But be careful. In the order of matter, matter is necessarily composed with matter and form. In the order of spiritual reality, in the order of God, there is unicity of act. God is not made with potency. That means in the order of spiritual reality, the simpler you are, the more perfect you are. I give you an example. I am a teacher. I teach mathematics. And I give a problem. One student is able to find the solution in 5 seconds. And the other takes 10 minutes for the same thing. Who is the more perfect? The first. IQ is based on that. You pass your IQ, you know that. So that means the reasoning is, the shortest is the reasoning, the best it is. No? A pilot. You know the pilot who will end in Hudson River. You remember that, huh? That pilot has a little time to take a decision. He has not time to call, you know, what I will do. He has not, wait a minute, I will open my book to read now. He was wonderful, a man, a pilot. He was able to take the decision rapidly and correctly. So perfection in the spiritual reality is this simplicity. You know, what is the proof of intelligence? Is not to know many things. It's to be able to synthesize. You know, what is a student? What do you do at the end of your studies in for a master? You have a comprehensive exam. What is the comprehensive exam? Strictly speaking, it's not memorizing. It's to be able to prove that you dominate the subject. You can use what you know and put that together. You can make a synthesis. But it's the same thing for a doctor, a physician. You go to the doctor. He spent 4, 5, 6 years at university. He knows a lot of things. He's the presence of a person. Maybe that person has 10 seconds, 20 seconds to survive. He must be a man of synthesis. He's not the one who is able to recite all the books. He's the one who is able to find a solution, synthetic, simplicity. One of the marvel I found in the Pope Francis, it is his capacity of synthesizing things, of synthesis. He's a doctor, he is a scientist, but he is able to synthesize big theory in simple words. For me, that is genius. It's genius because he is able to so he is arrived. In spiritual reality, the perfection is not in the complexity. In spiritual reality, the perfection is in the simplicity. And what is the perfect knowledge? Is to know something without reasoning. To know by intuition. It is the way God knows. He knows by intuition. That is the perfect. That means perfection is not in the complex reasoning. The perfection is the capacity of simplify a problem to arrive to the just decision and to say, in a few seconds, I will do that to land my plane. You will take that medication, or will do that procedure to save that man. You know, that is simplicity of knowledge. And it should be the ideal of every student. I am a whole teacher. I try always in my examination to give to my student the opportunity to try to make a little synthesis. A reflection paper I give you is for that. I don't want you to copy. I want you to use what you know, apply that to a concrete situation in your life. Reflect on one problem, one thing. You prove that you are able to synthesize. Okay? So that is important because the objection made against simplicity, it is the fact that in our human reality, perfection is complexity, but in spirituality, perfection is simplicity. Okay, go to page 10. The answer, huh? The difficulty arises from transferring to spiritual thing what our concept of material thing. So we cannot apply to spiritual reality. When I speak about spirituality, I speak about, for example, your thoughts are spiritual, huh? Your thought. For example, who is the best leader? He is the one who takes a long time to take a decision. He is the one who is able to take a decision rapidly and the best decision, rapidly. He was the genius of Napoleon. And Napoleon was a man of scientist. He was a genius because he was able to see a situation and to find exactly the solution, the best solution. That means simplicity of thinking, simplicity of willing. The Blessed Virgin Mary, and that is parenthesis, spiritual because I teach to Catholic. When she said, she said to the angel, oh, wait a minute. I will consult my rabbi. I will consult my mother, Saint Anne, and my father, Joachim. I will go to the prophet John the Baptist. No. She said, yes. Yeah. Spiritual. Simplicity. The simplicity. To be able, I have a great admiration for science. You know why? Because science, the object of science is billion of facts. Billion of objects falling on the floor. Billion. And to take all those billion experiences, experimentation in one formula. The formula of the falling of things. Huh? NV2, you know. We can take a phenomenon and summarize that by a single mathematical formula. For me, it's that proof the perfection in science is not the multiplicity of experiences, is to be able to arrive to synthesize all that in a few letters. Genius, remember Einstein, huh? E equal mc2. Huh? The vitesse of speed, you get mass by the energy. The energy equals the mass multiplied by the speed of light to the square. Only 3 letters and 1 here, number, and you have the synthesis of what happened in the sun now. Because the sun is a nuclear explosion. That is science. That is simplicity. In fact, science, the ideal of science is to arrive to simplicity. It's the same for God. God is infinitely perfect because he's infinitely simple. And you know, one Jesus said, like a child is simple. An adult is not simple. A reason. You find the reason, no? Be like child. Okay. So, well, I go to the last page, page 11. So the proof of the existence of God, huh? In fact, the foundation of that proof, I will summarize that rapidly here. first pure act. God is pure act. We saw that in the proof of motion, change. God is not changing, he's pure act. Okay? And from that, we arrive to, is it pure act? There is no limitation of perfection. If it's pure act, pure, that means there is no potency, there is no composition. If there is no composition, it is infinite. That means without limitation. It is infinite. No limitation by potency. God is not limited. Therefore, God is simple. Simplicity. Is the infinitely simple. Simple. He is. In Latin, es. In Spanish, es. It's fantastic. When God spoke, Moses said, "Who are you?" He said, "I am." But if he has spoken Latin, he will say, "Sum." Sum. The subject and the verb are one. Sum. Soy. I exist. It is the simplicity, no? God is infinitely simple because he is pure. But that is interesting. He is pure act, he is simple, but his effects are multiple. Interesting, huh? The effects are multiple. For example, somebody can think, can write. The thought is only one, but the thought is through books or through teaching goes to everyone. So the effects are multiple, but the cause is one. Descartes, for example, St. Thomas, they have a thought, personal thought, they thought. So the effect is multiple, but all that comes from Descartes, or a philosopher. You can apply that to many things, you know. So that means God is infinitely simple, infinitely pure act, but at the same time is omnipotent, omnipresent. It is what we study now, the next class, when we study the operative attribute of God. Okay.
Oh, what's the middle word right there? Between pure act and simple?
Pure act
No limitation.
is
No, below.
potency.
Oh.
Potency.